The last room on Ward CI used to do environmental services at a mid-size hospital. Fancy way of saying I mopped floors and emptied bins when everyone else went home. Nights were quiet in the hallways except for Ward C. Ward C was the rehab wing. Hip replacements, strokes, people learning to walk again. It should have been the calmest place at 3 a.m. There was this one room at the end, room 317. It faced a brick wall and a short service corridor. When the door was open, you'd catch a perfect rectangle of that blank, gray brick, with a single rust stain that looked like a crooked smile. Room 317 didn't have a patient assigned most of the time. I never asked why. Hospitals have rules and silences. One night, I'm assigned Ward C alone because my coworker called off. Around 2 a.m., I finish mopping the far end and I'm working my way toward 317. Every step echoes, and my cartwheels squeak on every tile line. I'm doing that thing where you hum to fill the space. Yeah, I know it doesn't help. But I notice the door to 317 is partly open. Just a sliver. The light inside is off, which is normal if it's empty. As I get close, the light flicks on. Not a flicker, click, full brightness. I freeze with the mop halfway lifted. Inside the room, everything is standard issue. Off-white walls, bed with the plastic-wrapped mattress, folded blankets in a cube. And that view of the gray brick. The rusty smile. I push the door open with the mop handle and say, "Environmental services," because we're supposed to announce ourselves in case a patient's there. That's when I smell it, like old flowers and rubbing alcohol. The kind of smell that lingers in funeral homes. It feels wrong because this room isn't used. There's a pause. That dead carpeted silence you only get in hospitals. Then the call button goes off. The red light above the door blinks. I hear the faint bell at the nurse's station down the hall. The call button is on the bed rail, flashing. I want to be the I'm not scared guy. I'm not that guy. I step backward into the hall and wave to the night nurse at the station. She's older, tough, definitely seen everything. I say, 317's calling. She looks at the board, then at me, and her face tightens. "No one's in 317, she says, picking up the phone. I hear her whisper, "Not again." She walks down with me and we stop at the doorway. The call light is still blinking. She leans across the bed and presses the cancel button. It clicks off. We stand there a second, pretending that fixed something. Then the overhead light turns itself off. The click is loud in that little room. The nurse stares at the switch, still in the on position. She doesn't say anything. She just reaches over and flicks the switch down, then back up. The light comes on again, but it's dimmer, like the bulb is tired. We both look at the window, just that brick wall and the stain. It looks wetter than before, darker. "Let's go," she says, backing out. "Maintenance can check it in the morning." I hesitate because my cart is partially inside. I step in, grab the handle, and that's when I hear plastic crinkle. The sound comes from the bed, right by the pillow. I glance down. The sheet is denting in, like someone depresses it with a fingertip. One spot, then another, as if a hand is patting for the call button. I yank the cart and it bangs my shin. The nurse grabs my sleeve and pulls me out. We shut the door hard. Back at the station, she tells me, very low, that room 317 used to be for end-of-life patients when the hospital was understaffed. She says one woman was left there overnight when a storm cut the power and the backup failed. They found her in the morning, half out of the bed, reaching toward the button. After that, they stopped assigning the room unless they absolutely had to. "Don't go in there again," she tells me. "If it calls, we cancel it." Of course, the rest of the night I hear little sounds, plastic creaks, the thunk of the door in its frame, like the building is breathing. I finish the shift a little too fast, skip 317, and clock out with my hands still shaking. 3 nights later, I'm back on Ward C. I pass 317, trying not to look, and something white is stuck in the door hinge, a paper wristband, the type they give patients. It's looped and crimped like it was torn off someone's wrist. The nurse sees me staring and says, "We didn't have any admissions last night." I step closer. There's a name on the band. My last name. Not common. The first initial matches mine, too. The date of birth is 1 day off, 1 day. The plastic smells faintly like flowers and alcohol. I drop it like it's hot metal. The nurse picks it up to throw away, but the printer ink on the band smears under her glove as if it was printed recently, still wet. "Probably a glitch," she says, a little too fast. That night the room stayed quiet. The light didn't turn on. The call light didn't flash. But as I pushed my cart past for the last time, I saw the rust streak on the brick. It wasn't a smile anymore. It was a long line, straight down, like someone had rubbed the grin off. I quit the hospital 2 weeks later. A month after that, I got appendicitis and ended up in the ER, different hospital. When they wheeled me down for a scan, we passed a doorway, a dim room with a window facing a wall, and on the bedside rail a call button blinking on and off. No one else seemed to notice. The gas station caller I worked nights at a gas station off a state highway. The kind of place with old fluorescent lights that buzz, 2 pumps that constantly shut off, and a bell that dings when the door opens. My shift was 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. It was lonely, but I liked the calm. Most people were truckers and exhausted parents. There was a payphone bolted to the wall outside. It didn't even work, or it wasn't supposed to. We kept it because taking it down would leave studs exposed to the weather. Everyone used their cell phones anyway. Right after 2 a.m., when the highway emptied out, the phone rang. Not the store phone behind the counter, the dead payphone. It rang slow like a heartbeat. Ring. 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 I watched it through the glass for a full minute because it could have been a weird echo or some electrical glitch. It kept ringing. Finally, I hit the switch to lock the door, company policy when we're alone, and went out with the store phone in my pocket. The payphone was old and scratched. There was gum on the metal shelf and a sticker half peeled that said, "Need a ride?" with a number in tiny print. The receiver looked sticky, but the cord was clean. The bell inside rang again. I lifted the receiver with 2 fingers and said, "Hello?" A woman's voice answered. Calm, flat. "Is the store open?" "Yeah," I said. "But it's locked at night." "I can unlock it if you need to come in." "Do you need gas?" Silence. Then, "I can't find my car." I thought she meant she'd parked and walked somewhere. People do that when they're trying to sober up. "Where are you?" I asked. "In the lot," she said. "I can't see it." I looked at the dark stretch of asphalt. There were 2 cars, a green sedan at pump 2 empty, and an old beige truck under the streetlight. No one was near the phone except me. "Do you see the pumps?" I asked. "Can you see me?" Silence. Then, in the exact same tone, "I can't find my car." It wasn't a repeat. The timing of the breath was different, but the voice was too steady, like reading from a cue card. "Okay," I said, trying to keep my voice light because I could feel my heart rate climbing. "Let me come out and help you. Can you wave your hand?" I glanced up toward the highway. A single set of headlights rolled by, then nothing. The glass door of the store threw my reflection back at me. The shelves inside looked like a little stage set. I felt like I was being watched. The woman spoke again, voice low, like she'd finally turned to look at me. "It's dark out here." The hairs on my arms lifted. Something about the phrasing scraped my nerves. My eyes adjusted more, and I noticed a shape by the trash can, something like clothing bunched on the ground. A coat, maybe? I took a step toward it, then heard the doorbell inside the store chime. Ding. I spun around. The door was still locked. No one was inside. Ding. The bell rang again. Soft, like someone had opened it very slowly. I backed toward the entrance. The payphone receiver was still in my hand. "Ma'am, hold on a second," I said automatically, still staring through the glass. The candy aisle looked the same. The freezer lights hummed. The office door behind the counter was closed. I felt a draft push against my sleeves. The air got colder, like the AC kicked hard. The woman on the phone whispered, not to me, but like she was telling herself, "He's going inside." I dropped the receiver. It swung and banged the metal, ringing once more as it hit. I fumbled the key, yanked the door, and stepped in, calling, "Hello?" Like an idiot who's never watched a horror movie. The bell dinged one last time, then stopped. I checked the aisles, the restroom, behind the counter. The office door was locked. Nothing. When I turned back to the front, I saw it, a smear across the glass near the lock. 4 parallel lines like someone with dirty fingers dragged them downward. I touched them. They were wet. It smelled like old pennies. The payphone outside had gone quiet. I looked back. The bunched coat by the trash can? It wasn't a coat. It was a stack of paper maps, rain-warped and stuck together, like somebody dumped them there and the wind had half lifted the top one. On the edge, in marker, someone had written a name and a number. The name was a first name only, and the number was the same tiny number on the "Need a Ride" sticker inside the phone booth. I tried to laugh at myself. Maybe it was a prank. I started counting bills to settle, get my breathing under control. Then the store phone rang, the one behind the counter. I picked it up. "Fuel Mart," I said. Static. Then that same woman's voice, soft and close, but the words were a little off, like she was trying to match me. "I can see you," she said. "But you can't see me." I slammed the phone down so hard the display flickered. The line rang again instantly. I unplugged it from the wall. Around 3:30, a highway patrol car pulled in. I told the officer everything, probably too fast. He listened, then asked me to step outside with him. He lifted the payphone receiver. Dead. No dial tone. He pushed the buttons. Nothing. He looked at the cord. It wasn't connected to anything. No line, nothing. He tapped the casing with his knuckle and said, "Kid, they took these out 5 years ago." I nodded. I didn't tell him about the voice calling me from the store phone. A week later, one of the morning regulars told me his sister used to rideshare around that stretch in the 90s. She got in a car with a woman once who talked like a robot, like she was repeating lines she memorized. The woman dropped her at our station. She never saw the car again. She said the woman kept saying, "It's dark out here." He laughed. "Creepy, right?" He laughed. I didn't. I still walked outside every night to check that dead payphone. It never rang again. But the metal shelf beneath the receiver always felt cold, even in July. And if I stood there too long, I'd start smelling old pennies. The warehouse lights. I took a temp job at a distribution warehouse overnight shift, 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. You'd think warehouse means big open space and noise. It was big, but it felt swallowed. Shelves 3 stories tall formed alleys that went on forever. The highlights flickered, leaving pockets of shadow that looked solid. My job was simple. Scan pallets, check numbers. I liked the rhythm. In the last hour, the place got quiet as everyone lined up the forklifts to charge. One of the supervisors, a guy named Luis, warned me on my first night. "Don't go down aisle 19 after 4. The motion lights get weird." I thought he meant they flicker. He just made this face and changed the subject. On my 3rd week, I messed up a count in zones 18-20, so I had to recheck before shift end. It was 4:10 a.m. I debated skipping 19. I told myself I wasn't superstitious. I also told myself I wanted the job. I took my little scanner and headed into the alley. The motion lights are supposed to click on in sections like a wave. In aisle 19, they did the opposite. The lights behind me stayed on. The ones ahead of me stayed dark. But when I took a step forward, the darkness moved too, keeping just ahead like it was being pulled away from me by a string. You know that feeling when you think someone is walking just out of sight? It was like that. I kept moving, pointlessly mad at my own nerves. Halfway down, I heard a plastic snap above me. A shrink wrap roll popped loose and spun. I looked up in time to see the clear film unspool and drift down, hissing as if someone had tossed it. I turned and scanned the shelves. No one. I stepped around the plastic like it was a snake and kept going. At the far end, near the loading dock, there's a red exit sign that throws a weird glow. Right before it, I saw a puddle on the concrete reflecting that red like an eye. We weren't supposed to have liquids near the pallets. I crouched and touched it. It wasn't water. It was sticky, like someone spilled soda and sugar. I wiped my fingers on my pants, annoyed and grossed out. A forklift beeped in reverse somewhere distant. The sound bounced off the steel coming from everywhere. I took one more step toward the exit, and the exit sign went out. Not flickered. It just went dark, and all the motion lights in the aisle went with it. Pop, 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 like a line of fuses blowing. The only light left was way back the way I came. A single rectangle around the corner. I stood there in the dark, breathing in forklift exhaust and dust, while the scanner beeped in my hand. Beep, beep, beep. The scanner screen showed a barcode that wasn't there, black lines floating across the blue LCD. Then, in the corner of the display, numbers changed on their own. 1, 9, 1, 9. Okay, nope, I said out loud to no one and turned back. That last light looked too far. I started walking fast, then jogging, passing stacked boxes with stenciled labels that all seemed to spell out different words when I wasn't looking at them directly. Hold. Halt, help. My footsteps echoed weirdly, like someone was behind me, out of sync by half a beat. I kept telling myself to breathe. At the midpoint, the light at the end blinked and then grew brighter like I was getting closer. That's when a voice said, right in my left ear, "Stop." I froze so hard my teeth clicked. I didn't turn around. I didn't look to the side. The voice was like breath over a bottle, hollow, close. "Don't move," it said, as if it was concerned. I was too scared to be offended by a ghost telling me what to do. Then, a crash to my right. A top pallet slid an inch and dropped 3 cases down. If I had kept going, those cases would have hit me. The cases skidded past my shoes and spilled something that looked like spills of oil, black and thick. But when one drop hit my skin, it didn't feel like oil. It felt cold, like winter air in a liquid. My skin shrank away. I stood until my knees shook. The voice didn't speak again. The far light stayed steady. Slowly, I stepped around the fallen cases and kept going, repeating, almost there," like it was a prayer. When I reached the end of the aisle, the light went normal. I didn't look back. I turned the corner into aisle 18 and bumped into Luis. He looked like he was coming to get me and didn't want to admit it. "You okay?" he asked, scanning my face. "There was something," I said. The exit sign went out. The lights. The scanner, he held up a hand like stop, then he said, "Did you hear it?" "The voice?" I asked. He nodded once. His jaw clenched and unclenched. "We had an accident on 19, he said. 2 years ago. Guy named Henley. Top pallet fell. Hit him in the head. No one found him for 20 minutes. They say he kept talking, though. Kept telling people to stop. He was warning the others away. After that, most of us avoid that aisle late. I wanted to be brave and cool. I think I just looked green." Luis patted my shoulder once and told me to go get a soda. "You'll be fine," he said. He's not mad, he's stuck. I transferred to daytime 2 weeks later. Sometimes when I'm in a grocery store and they have those tall shelves, I feel my shoulders lift, waiting for a voice to say, "Stop." It never does. But when the motion lights in my apartment hallway turn off behind me in a wave, I speed up. And when I pass exits with red signs, I don't look at the floor for reflections. I don't want to know what's there. The diner's closed sign. My last story is about a 24-hour diner I worked at right after high school. It sat off a side road that used to be busy before the highway bypass killed it. By the time I got there, most customers were third-shift workers, a few tired cops, and the occasional insomniac. The neon open sign flickered between PN and OEN, like it couldn't decide what we were. After midnight, it was just me and a cook named Carla. She smoked like a movie character and could flip 5 pancakes at once. There's a bell at the pickup window that she'd smack with the back of a spoon when orders were ready. Ding. The bell meant normal, human things. I started to love that bell. One stormy Tuesday, the owner asked me to put the closed sign on the door because the power had flickered twice already. He didn't want people to get mad if we had to shut down. I stuck the sign in the inner window with the suction cup. It faced the lot. It was one of those reversible signs. Open on one side, closed on the other. I made sure the right side was showing. Closed. 20 minutes later, the bell above the door chimed. I looked up, ready to say we weren't taking more customers. The door hadn't moved. The storm made the glass bow inward, that's all. I told my heart to calm down. I poured coffee for no one. Then I noticed the sign. It now said open. I tapped the glass, flipped it back to closed. The suction cup made that pop sound. I told Carla. She rolled her eyes and said it was the wind. We joked that the sign was desperate for tips, but it changed again. And again. 5 minutes later, it read open. The wind had died down. The sign hung still as a painting. I went to flip it back and noticed something I swear wasn't there before. A small smear across the C like finger grease, a short arc at the curve. I wiped it with my sleeve. It didn't smudge. It had dried. I locked the door. We decided to clean up early. If anyone came, we'd tell them we were closing due to weather. At 1 a.m., the bell tinged. It wasn't the door. It was Carla's bell at the window. Ding. I looked at her, she shrugged. She hadn't hit it. Ding. A second time, a little softer, like someone tapped it with one finger. The air felt different, like the humidity had crawled inside. I went cold and damp at the same time. I stepped toward the window to check the pass-through, expecting to see a fly or, I don't know, something explainable. There was a plate on the shelf. White ceramic, small cracks in the glaze shaped like spiderwebs. On the plate, exactly 3 coins, 2 quarters, and a dime. I looked at Carla. Did you put this here? She shook her head slowly, cigarette halfway to her mouth, ash hanging on. She turned to the grill like she couldn't stand to look straight at it. We're closed, she called toward the empty booths, trying for humor and landing on shaky. I picked up one of the quarters. It was freezing like it had been outside. The date was 1998. The surface had faint greenish flakes like it had been in water. The dime was worse, blackened around the edges like it sat in a fire and then sunk in a pond. The bell tinged again. I put the coins down and the bell stopped. We stood in that stale diner air listening to water drum the roof. I went to the front door to check the lock again. The closed sign had flipped back to open, but the suction cup and hook were exactly where I left them, and the sign had rotated cleanly on the hook. It faced out toward the lot. In the reflection, I could see our booths behind me in the dark windows. And something else, a person across the lot standing by the dead gas station. No umbrella, no coat, just a thin shape. The rain should have blurred them, but they looked sharp and still, like they were inside a different kind of weather. I blinked, and they were closer, now across the 2-lane road, at the edge of our parking lot. Not moving, just closer with that same sharpness. Carla, I said. She didn't answer, so I tore my eyes away and walked back to the counter. She was standing rigid, staring at the checkout tip jar. Someone had dropped a folded bill inside. It hadn't been there a second ago. Okay, she said, voice too bright. We're done. We're good. Let's go. Let me just flip the sign, I said, because it felt like a rule that mattered. I went back, careful not to look outside. I flipped it to closed. The sign felt heavier than it should, like I was turning something that didn't want to turn. I heard the doorbell chirp, just the tiniest ding, as if someone tested the handle from the outside. The lock held. I looked up to spite myself. The person from the lot now stood 3 feet from the glass. I don't know how they moved that fast. My heart jumped into my throat so hard I got dizzy. They were a woman, hair plastered flat, face too pale from the neon. She had a hospital band on her wrist or some kind of bracelet white against gray. Her clothes didn't cling the way wet clothes should. They hung like gravity was different for her. Her eyes were dark, not from mascara or bruises, just a darkness like a reflection with no light behind it. She raised her hand very slowly and placed 4 fingers against the glass. The same 4 parallel smear I'd seen at the gas station years later. Old pennies filled my mouth and I actually swallowed like I could taste the metal. I shook the door like an idiot and yelled through the glass, "We're closed." She didn't react. She looked down at the sign, open, closed, then up at me. Her lips moved, but I couldn't hear words. Only the bell at the pass-through behind me, slowly, patiently, ding. Ding, ding. I backed away. Carla came around the counter with a dish towel in one hand like it could solve anything, and we stood there together. The woman lowered her hand from the glass. She turned and walked back across the lot without looking both ways. No cars, though. There haven't been many cars on that road in years. She reached the far curb and stopped. For a second, her outline blurred. Then she was just gone. Not faded into rain. Gone the way a TV goes dark. We stood a long time. I flipped the sign again, closed. We turned off the neon. The bell at the pass-through finally stopped. When we counted the till at 3 a.m., we found another 3 coins in the drawer that didn't match our state or mint. Too light, too bright. Dates that didn't line up with any we knew. I could swear one had a bird I've never seen on currency. We turned them over in our hands and they were all freezing cold. 2 weeks later, a guy came in for breakfast and told Carla that the town had pulled an old car from the pond by the bypass. Said it had gone missing in the late 90s. Said the woman inside was still wearing a hospital wristband. He said it like gossip, like a story to go with eggs. I watched his mouth move and thought about the coins and about the way the closed sign always felt heavier now. Like water. We never worked another stormy night with the big windows uncovered. We taped brown paper over them when rain was in the forecast. We pretended it was to keep the heat in, but we both knew the truth. We didn't want the sign to flip by itself again. It still did sometimes, and when it did, the tip jar always had 3 coins waiting.